fog forming. Lowest temperatures of -1 to +3 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball
with Gillette. Put your best face forward.
Hello there, welcome along to Monday evening's Off the Ball. I trust you're all covered in FA Cup magic dust after the weekend that was. We'll have a football show with Pat Nevin and Kieran Shannon as well. Fantastic writer for the Irish Examiner. Kieran Shannon also a long-suffering Nottingham Forest fan. Finally a day in the sun. So we'll talk to Kieran about the life of being an Irish-based Nottingham Forest fan. Laid bare. That's on the way after 9 o'clock. Manchester United Aston Villa, by the way, is on tonight in the FA Cup. This hour we will speak to the great Caitlin Thompson on freedom for Novak, plus Jerry Thornley and Fiona Hayes on Monday Night Rugby. 53106 is the text number. Do get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. At Off the Ball on Twitter is where you'll get us as well. Nathan Murphy, hello to you.
Hey Joe.
Are you covered in magic dust? What are you covered in, Nathan?
Well, that's I don't know if you want to know, Joe. Magic dust, yes, sprinkled in magic dust by the wonder of Wes and Cambridge.
Well, indeed. Richie McCormack, hello to you.
I was wondering why Mr. Shannon favoured a tweet of mine mentioning Forest last night, because I was saying on Twitter that the amount of people over the age of 35 who kind of sort of used to like Forest but never actually had them as their favourite team were watching that game against Arsenal yesterday. But yeah, it's been a good weekend for FA Cup PR. It certainly has.
Yeah. Well, I suppose
any club in football. Sorry, Joe. I was going to ask: is there any club in all of football that is dominated by one figure in the way that Nottingham Forest is with Brian Clough? You cannot think about Nottingham Forest for more than 3 seconds without Clough being front and centre of everything you know about them, all their greatest periods, and the likeability of Nottingham Forest is down to Brian Clough.
Yeah. I mean, definitely up there in terms of one club men. I suppose, like, you say Manchester United, you think of Ferguson and Busby, but then there's so many others. So yeah, no, I take your point. Yeah, it's a different proposition entirely, isn't it? There is a thing, certainly in this country, and I suppose maybe to a lesser extent in the UK, where you support clubs in your area, but over here, akin to having the year you were born and your email address, depending on which club you support, you can be dated a touch. I mean, there's a cohort of Leeds United fans of a certain age, there's Nottingham Forest fans of a certain age. I think a couple of years older than me, there's a batch of Aston Villa fans. And I think, fellas, in 30, 40 years, all the kids who support Newcastle will be like, why do our dads support Man United and Liverpool? What's that about? So I think there's a bit of that with Kieran Shannon.
I once worked with not one, not two, but 3 Sheffield Wednesday fans in the one workplace at the one time, and only one of them was actually from Sheffield. So yeah, you can kind of glom onto these teams when they have their moment in the sun. And Forest had more than a couple of moments in the sun under Brian Clough in the late 70s and early 80s. So you can understand why there are people still hanging on there and people who've been long suffering. And it was mentioned on commentary, I think Sam Matterface just dropped it just as they were walking out for the second half. It's 23 years since Forest were in the Premier League. We kind of still think of them as being that side that were there 5-6 years ago tops, but no, it's been 23 years and it's only going to go further. But Steve Cooper seems to be doing a bit of a job there, and fingers crossed from their point of view that he can continue to build what he started there, because it's looking good.
Well, we'll ask Kieran Shannon what the last 20 years have been like, so that's on the way after 9 o'clock. Pat Nevin as well, and then Nathan, freedom for Novak. I understand you were you tuned to the wireless ear against the speakers, waiting for word on Novak, and danced when word came through that he had been released, freed in fact.
Well, I was deciding whether to stay up and watch the Tournament of Champions till 3 o'clock in the morning with an ear on Novak Djokovic, but I decided maybe bed was a better option. I got a shout when I woke up this morning and saw the news that he was actually been allowed in. I was quite shocked. I thought the odds were massively stacked against him, considering all the negative publicity, considering the way that those in authority have spoken about him, and also just the way that immigration in Australia works. If they don't want you there, they seem to be able to get rid of you. But he found a judge who found a lot of fault, it seems, with how Australia handled this scenario. And I know it's not a done deal so far, but God, it would be difficult, and I think would create, judging on the feedback from the other players, would create a serious issue for the Australian Open if at this stage they decided to get rid of Djokovic and kick him out of the country again. But God, it's become one heck of a mess. That isn't sorted at all when you even look at the press conference that his family held today, when they were asked about the issue of the fact that Djokovic was seen in public at a presentation with children the day after he says he tested positive for COVID. The press conference was shut down rather quickly when a question was asked about that. So there's a lot to run in this, but right now it's hard to see how he doesn't line up in the Australian Open next Monday.
Yeah, it's total circus. I mean, what was interesting about the judgment today from Anthony Kelly, good Irishman there, I'm sure, down the line, is that it was more of a procedural issue. So he quashed the detainment of Djokovic on the basis that Djokovic, when he arrived at the airport, he hadn't been given enough time to give some kind of legal response when they said you're not getting in. He should have been given several hours. Instead, after 45 minutes, they said, right, your time's up. If you haven't got a response, you're not being let in. And so it was on that procedural issue that his current detainment was quashed. It wasn't as if he said, oh, the exemption is good, bad or indifferent. He didn't even get into the exemption. And so, as you referenced, Nathan, it's going to fall on the Minister for Immigration, Alex Hawke, to make effectively, I think, an executive decision on this. I was looking into Alex Hawke. Interesting fella. He's against same-sex marriage. He supported a reduction in foreign aid. He wants to limit government responses to climate change, and he strongly supported new rules to allow religious schools expel students who are gay, bisexual or transgender. But aside from that, I don't know much about his politics. So it's going to fall on Alex Hawke to make a decision here on the Djokovic situation. And it's amazing how it's become all so politicised. Why was Nigel Farage there? Why? No, genuinely, because I was trying to think, what's the angle? Is he anti-vax, or why is he pitching up with the Djokovic clan?
He's lent that way a little bit in recent weeks, but there was a brilliant meme did the rounds last night, featuring Mrs. Merton. I don't know if people would remember Mrs. Merton, the great Carolina Hearn figure, and she once put the line to Debbie McGee, and it was repurposed for Nigel Farage. It's like, so Nigel, what has attracted you to the multi-millionaire sports star Novak Djokovic?
Yeah.
Which obviously went down really well with the likes of Andy Murray online. But like, Farage is a leech and will glom onto any situation that could possibly benefit his brand. So I don't think we should take too much notice of him. But it would be in line with the political leanings of the Djokovic family and how Novak feels about, Ratko Mladic over in Serbia and his denial of genocide in Bosnia and stuff like that, because they've entertained people like that before. So Farage wouldn't be beyond the pale for them to be welcomed into the family.
Oh, maybe that's it. I couldn't really work it out. I mean, the trophy room that Farage was welcomed into did look absolutely fantastic. Andy Murray with the tweet of the weekend, clearly. So he's retweeted Farage entering and said, please record the awkward moment when you tell them you spent most of your career campaigning to have people from Eastern Europe deported. Just the 300,000 likes there. That's Nathan Murphy-esque.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see if he does line up next week, what the reaction is going to be in Melbourne.
What do you think, by the way? What do you think, Nathan? Do you think you get good reaction?
No, I think it'll be, unless somehow all the Serb community managed to buy up all of the tickets, I think it'll be an overwhelmingly negative reaction towards Djokovic. It does seem as though your average Australian is pretty peeved with what's happened, considering the sacrifices they've made, particularly in Melbourne, more than any other city over the last 2 years, that an exception is being made. So I'd be shocked if Djokovic wasn't pretty much booed out of the place the second he comes on. And it doesn't seem, and maybe we will hear from Novak Djokovic over the next 24, 48 hours, it doesn't seem he's softened his stance in any way. Really is going down the line as though he has been incredibly hard done by here by not being allowed into the country, and that he's the one who's been completely screwed over, which maybe because the way the Australian government have gone about this, maybe that will work, and maybe people will see through what the Australian government have been trying to do.
Yeah, I think he does have grounds to feel a touch hard done by. We can get into the issue that he's been photographed all around Serbia and Belgrade after his supposed positive test and not masked and surrounded by like 25 teenagers in one photo. But just on what happened with the exemption, it seems he was diagnosed with COVID on the 16th of December, registered with the public health school there. So it's official, he has COVID a second time, and he goes through the two boards where one of their criteria, now it seems the Prime Minister's disagreeing with this, but again, that's on Australia, like what a mess. But one of their criteria is if you've had COVID in the last number of months, you get your exemption. He proves he's had COVID just several weeks ago. So in fairness to him, I would think he left for Australia in good faith, thinking I've gone through the boards twice, I had COVID in December, that's my box ticked, in I go. So I do have a degree of sympathy for Richie, not his wider stance and all this, but just in terms of the minutiae of turning up to Australia, thinking he had everything sorted, and then it seems Australia are all over the place as to what qualifies for exemption and what doesn't.
Yeah, that's the main issue here, is that Tennis Australia, the local government in Victoria, and then the federal government all had 3 different avenues for which somebody could enter the country, and he went with the route that he thought was acceptable, and he's been told no, and we've had this process here. But like, as we keep coming back to, it could all have been sorted so easily if Djokovic had just, A, either announced his vaccine status, or B, got vaccinated. Like, he's going into locker rooms that are full of people. They're not like, closed off, one man per locker room. It's like it's a wide open kind of space, the same as would be in like a gym or whatever else. And you're sitting around in front of your fellow players, and you have a deal of responsibility, particularly as somebody who's so prominent in the game and is the world number one and is a 20-time Grand Slam winner. You have a duty of care towards your opponent during any sport, and that falls into that category. He has a duty of care here and has decided to make a massive point to get himself holed up in a hotel for 2-3 days, all because he doesn't want to fall in line and wants to be seen as this, bodily autonomy, rebel. Like, it's silliness on his behalf, and it could have been easily sorted a long, long time ago, as Rafa Nadal pointed out last week.
No,
isn't that a separate point?
But shouldn't he be? I mean, I do agree with you in many ways, but he's entitled to not get vaccinated, as much as many of us would disagree with that and just think, God, would you not listen to the expertise here? He's entitled to not get vaccinated, and then to be treated like this and the plaything of all these politicians increasingly as it goes on. That's why I wonder, Nathan, about the reception he might receive. I do think some people might look at the situation and say, well, he's a pawn here. Now, admittedly, a pawn worth 200 million, and many aspects of it self-inflicted, but there's definitely a degree to which he is a pawn.
Absolutely. I think they're 2 different scenarios. I think we're all in agreement that he should have just got vaccinated and made his life a lot easier and made everybody else's life around him a lot safer. But he's chosen not to do that. He travelled to Australia on the presumption he would get in because he has had COVID, and the rules as he understood them said he should be allowed in. The Australian government, obviously, I wouldn't be at all surprised if the first they knew about this was when Novak Djokovic put out his tweet, saw a backlash coming, reacted in the way they have, and had, as you say, have created one of the greatest circus we've ever seen around any sports person. Listening and reading some of the Australian newspapers, it does seem as though while Australians and the Australian voters might be able to see through what's happening, they also agree with the line that the government is taking. Yeah. That there will be a strong Serbian population, a strong anti-vax movement who will be very vocal in their support for Novak Djokovic, but the majority of people, and it's a country that's up there with Ireland in the most vaccinated in the world, are thinking, well, we have sacrificed, and this guy has made it clear that he will not sacrifice anything. So why should we have any sympathy for him?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it with Caitlin Thompson a little bit. I don't know out there, are people bored silly of this story, or they find it all very interesting? It definitely opened my eyes to the Australian immigration policy generally, which does not seem like the kindest system in the world. You mentioned, by the way, watching the Tournament of Champions on Sunday, Cam Smith with a 34 under par winning total, lowest in PGA Tour history, although big asterisks beside that because there were preferred lies Thursday and Friday. But just to mention, I think Gary Murphy on Golf Weekly last week was top. He was absolutely brilliant, so go find that on Patreon if you're interested, just to give that a mention. We should start the news round because, Rich, I know there's plenty going on. It is, as ever, with thanks to our friends at Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Somebody is giving out to me for calling Nottingham Forest Notts Forest. I'll get to that text in a second. I think I've committed something very serious there. But you're starting with the live football this evening. More 4-2-2-2-2-2-2-2.
Yeah, a home tie with Middlesbrough awaits the winners of tonight's FA Cup third round contest at Old Trafford. Stephen Gerrard visiting for the first time as a manager with his Aston Villa side taking on Manchester United. There's no Cristiano Ronaldo or Phil Jones for United tonight, who line out with David De Gea in goal, a back four of Diogo Dalot, Rafael Varane, Victor Lindelof and Luke Shaw. The two sitting in midfield are Scott McTominay and Fred. In front of them are Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford. And as you mentioned, in the 4-2-2-2-2-2-2-2, Mason Greenwood partners Edinson Cavani up top. Strong starting 11 for Aston Villa, but a pretty weak bench for them. Emi Martinez is in goal. Matty Cash, Ezri Konsa, Tyrone Mings and Matt Targett are across the back four. John McGinn, Douglas Luiz and Joe Ramsey are in midfield. And then up top it's Emi Buendia, Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins. Kick off at 5-8. And as I mentioned, a home tie with Middlesbrough, Aaron Connolly and all will await in round 4.
I asked you about the FA Cup magic dust, Nathan. I must say, it's gone for me. I just can't get into it again, the FA Cup. It's been ruined for a long time now. I have no interest in the third round. It's a real effort to keep on top of things. Professional courtesy only, really. Where are you in the FA Cup?
I'm with you, and I understand the arguments against it, that there's so many great stories when you go down to the lower leagues. But even yesterday, flicking between the Liverpool match and the Tottenham match, and both of them are trailing, and it still didn't feel like it really mattered. I know there's no such thing as an asterisk beside it, but Shrewsbury beating a Liverpool side that, all right, had 3 of their first choice back 4, but aside from that was a bunch of kids, or a Tottenham side being beaten by Morecambe that had 8 players that if Antonio Conte could get rid of them tomorrow, he would, doesn't exactly feel the same as 20, 25 years ago when it's a full-strength side. Now, to counter that, obviously Newcastle put out pretty much a full-strength side, and Cambridge got a brilliant victory, but that one was the one that wasn't on telly on Saturday afternoon. So it doesn't feel to me as if Liverpool had lost yesterday, yeah, it'd be a story for 24 or 48 hours. But is it going to massively impact on their season? And I saw John Aldridge saying how, Jurgen Klopp needs to win trophies, needs to win more trophies than a Premier League and a Champions League. Probably isn't enough for what he has done at Liverpool so far. Again, yeah, if you get to the quarterfinal, semi-final, then you want to go and win it. But before that, you're just trying to somehow stumble your way through. No. It's probably slightly different tonight for Manchester United because of the situation that Ralph Rangnick finds himself in, that they're constantly on the verge of crisis, and in the midst of one again, that suddenly if you lose at Old Trafford against Aston Villa, it escalates and goes up a couple more notches, the level of pressure you're in. But you can say, yes, all the stories, all of that. It's great to see some giant killings. It's great to see some non-league sides getting in about it. But does it get you emotionally anymore?
No,
I don't think so.
I just don't care about it. Just don't care, like in the slightest, which is terrible because I used to love it.
I do.
Do you? Yeah. Why do you care about it when I watched teams who are mostly familiar to us, when they actually don't give a damn about it?
Why are the teams that you're mostly familiar with the only ones that matter?
Well, they're the ones I have a relationship with and the ones I'm interested in. I never said the others didn't matter. They matter to their fans. But I mean, as a neutral observer, I'm just exactly. can't get into it,
Exactly. It's an egalitarian cup competition where everybody has a chance of beating somebody else, no matter what lineup they put out. I think what they did brilliantly actually across the weekend, Newcastle's case in point in this actually, regardless of the result against Cambridge, is that they had lower ticket prices, so there was like 50,000 in to see that, whether it was a good day or a bad day for Newcastle. I watched a lot of the highlights as well. The only bad attendance I saw was at Stoke, where there's about 5 people rattling around, about 365 for that one. But I think everywhere else did a really good job, where even championship sides before had struggled to get gates for FA Cup 3rd and 4th round day. They actually managed to get people in, which I think added to matters. But like seeing results like Forest beating Arsenal yesterday, granted it wasn't a great game, but it matters hugely to Forest and what Steve Cooper is trying to do at that football club.
But that
there are
doesn't
others
matter
dotted around the weekend.
But I guess you understand. You understand why that doesn't matter to me. Do you know what I mean? That's just why do I matter? Why I don't? But I'm just giving my opinion. I'm just giving my opinion in so much as it doesn't matter.
I know, yeah. None of us do, and these football clubs are all older than us, and they'll all outlive us. So they're the ones that kind of matter. And if they have a good day out and they have a good weekend, then fair play to them and good luck to them, and they continue the magic at the cup. I don't think our opinion matters a jot whether we like it or not.
But you get into all that.
Oh yeah. 100%. Like it's a really, really good weekend. Like there's games dotted around the weekend. You got matches from Friday evening up until yesterday evening. Like it's really good stuff.
Yeah, I think like the FA Cup should remain as a competition for that reason, as Richie said, that it matters and is the one opportunity for those players. I think it has lost a lot of relevance for the vast majority of people, simply because we all got so excited for the FA Cup 3rd round because it was a weekend where there were probably more matches on than any other weekend of the season, whereas now actually it almost, in a way, because it's relentless wall-to-wall Premier League, almost feels like a bye weekend.
So Africa Cup of Nations is progressing?
Yeah, a day of late goals and 1-0 victory so far in Cameroon. An injury time penalty from Sadio Mane handed Senegal a 1-0 win over Zimbabwe in Group B. Elsewhere in that group, Guinea beat Malawi by a single score as well, while Soufiane Boufal struck 7 minutes from time to give Morocco a 1-0 win over Ghana in Group C. The other game in that group kicked off at 7 p.m. Tournament debutants, indeed making their debut at a major tournament of any kind. Comoros are currently 1-0 down to Gabon. There's 21 and a half minutes played in that particular tie.
Djokovic family had a press conference today.
Yeah, Djokovic says he's pleased and grateful that a judge overturned his visa cancellation. The men's number one has shared a picture from Melbourne's Rod Laver Arena as he begins preparations for the Australian Open. Federal Circuit Court Judge Anthony Kelly ruled in favour of the Serb overnight. However, Australian Immigration Minister Alex Hawke still has powers to deport Djokovic. Pictures have also emerged suggesting Djokovic met fans after testing positive in Serbia last month. He hasn't said if he knew he was positive when he met those fans. And at a family press conference today, Georgia Djokovic wasn't keen to answer if his brother was knowingly out in public while positive for COVID-19.
Okay, so this press conference is adjourned at the moment. Thank you for attention. Hvala svima još jednom što ste došli. Želim vam sve najbolje. Hvala vam na podršci.
Doesn't look great if you just go off his timeline on Twitter. So he said in his interview with the authorities that the COVID test was positive 16th of December, registered with the Institute of Public Health of Serbia on the 16th, and so it is. On that same day, he was unveiling a stamp in his home country of himself. He's indoors, maskless. There's a picture of him shaking hands with a guy. And then on the 17th, we don't know if the photograph was taken on the 17th, but that's the assumption. He's surrounded by 25 teenagers, one adult. This is the day after the infection, all smiles at the Novak Tennis Centre in Belgrade. And then on Christmas Day, he's photographed around Belgrade when he should be in self-isolation, working off the numbers. So it was on that note that the press conference was ended. Simon Zebo, bad Saturday evening, but new contract.
New 2-year deal for Zebo at Munster. Looks like he'd be ending his career there. The winger turned full-back only rejoined the province from Racing in the summer, of course. Jeremy Loughman, Keenan Knox and Dermot Barron and Jack Daly have also signed new 2-year deals today, while Ben Healy has put pen to paper on a 1-year extension. Still no official word, however, on Malachi Fekitoa, who is expected to join from Wasps in the summer.
Owen Ty says, I hope the Forest fan, this will be Kieran Shannon, has a go at you for saying Notts Forest in that introduction. Disgraceful. There is no S in Nottingham. Notts County exists as they represent the county of Nottinghamshire. Come on, Joe, says Owen, in brackets, another lifelong Nottingham Forest sufferer, Nathan. She's really getting to them. 20 years of...
They've waited. They've waited for 20 years to get their little bit of coverage back on off the ball, and you can't even pronounce the name right.
I apologise. I do apologise. No, you're dead right. Dead right to pick me up on that, in fairness. So yeah, but I would have thought Notts Forest was a thing that would have been said back in the day.
Really?
A little bit, no,
maybe.
I was younger.
I don't like any.
It was, yeah, no, definitely
people
was.
Who call
Definitely
people
was.
call Manchester United Man United. I've no time for.
Do you not? You don't like Man United?
No.
Why?
No. Come on, unless you're 8. Call them what they're meant to be called.
Is it, I don't know. Manchester United is just a little formal or OTT or something. I did hear a Manchester United fan refer to themselves as long-suffering without irony just the other day. I know.
Well, it's what, 8 years?
Yeah. Well, like an FA Cup and a Europa League thrown in, but yeah, I suppose 8 long years thrown in. Richie, time is coming against us. Is there any story you must bring the people before we go?
An interesting one, because Jamie McGrath has been linked with a move to Aberdeen. The Republic of Ireland midfielder is out of contract at St Mirren in the summer. They have offered him a deal that would make him St Mirren's highest ever paid player, but Aberdeen are hoping to tie McGrath down to a pre-contract deal this month.
Interesting, Nathan. Man in demand.
Yeah, there's obviously been quite a bit of speculation that he might move to the Championship as well. You definitely just want him to go somewhere where he's playing all the time, because, you know, if he's not in Stephen Kenny's first choice 11, he's sort of player number 12 or 13 right now, and is going to get a lot of time over the next year. So wherever he goes, you just want to make sure he's on the pitch, he's making an impact, and this is maybe that little step up in the Scottish League is the ideal move for him.
Okay, very good, fellas. We are just out of time. Richie McCormack, thank you.
Nice one.
Nathan Murphy, thanks a mil.
Cheers, lads.